Okay, so like I said, I'll bring back up hunting story. That's okay, it's called the Decoy. They sat on their haunches in a wide, circling drive between the shed and the farmhouse. BBs plinked softly as they loaded the cocked action gun. Barn swallows sat perched above them on a power line, conversing as the sun began to descend over the wheat fields past the westernmost machinery barn. The brothers, overalled and barefoot, picked up stray BBs coated with a fine layer of dust from the drive in front of the barn. Isaac, the younger of the two, poured a few BBs into his palm, and, while his older brother searched the dust for any remaining ammunition, he tossed them into his mouth. He loved the way the hard objects rolled around. He tongued them and pushed them against his teeth or stored them between his cheeks and gums. They had a distinct taste, clean with a sharp, steely tang that weakened as his mouth watered. Isaac, John looked at him with furrowed brows. What? Mom told you to stop putting the BBs in your mouth. Spit them out now. Isaac leaned over and puckered his lips. No, don't spit them on the ground. Here. John unhooked one side of Isaac's overalls, pulled the bottom of his shirt out, and pulled it up. Spit them in here, he said, then dry them off and put them back in the tube. The gun's loaded already. Isaac did as he was told. He puckered and pushed out each BB one by one, letting them fall and collect in the fold of his shirt. His brother took a few steps forward, cocked the gun, and put it to his shoulder. John aimed at the birds on the power line. A soft, airy pop sounded, followed by the snap of the ball striking the wire. 4 swallows danced into the air a few feet and then floated back down. Some 40 or 50 swallows sat along the wire, and most of you didn't even register the small thunk or the boys with lanky limbs below. Damn, John said. I was right on target with that fat swallow. It would have hit him for sure if that wire weren't there. Isaac shook his head and watched his brother cock the gun again. He raised it toward the sun. Isaac put a hand over his eyes and looked up to the birds, a line of silhouettes. Encased in plastic tubing, the power line stretched from the house to the barns 20 feet above the gravel drive. Isaac heard a pop, but none of the birds moved. His brother fired off another, but the birds continued to sit and chat, unperturbed. The 4th shot sent a few of the swallows flying outward, but they only arced back onto the wire. Which one are you shooting at? Isaac asked. That fat one, John answered, pulling Isaac's shoulder to his and pointing upward. He's 1, 2, 3 from the break in the line there. Oh, I see him, Isaac said, turning to his older brother. That'd be a nice one, wouldn't it? Sure would. You know the bigger they are, the harder it is to get them. Isaac paused, looking up at the swallow that outsized all of his companions. Maybe it was like hunting deer. Big bucks were the hardest to get, according to Dad. Just like deer? Yep. Remember what Dad said about getting a buck? You gotta be patient. John squinted into the sun with one eye closed and squeezed off the round. The fat swallow jumped off the wire with a couple others and then fell a few feet before bobbing up and down in the air, wounded. We got him. The swallow broke lower and began to flap in swift wing beats, rising and flying around the corner of the house. The boys followed, bounding around the house in bare feet, only to watch the swallow rise over the treetops of the woods and disappear. Damn, I sure hit that one. You think he's dead? Isaac asked. I can't imagine he got too far, not with a wound like that. He's probably lying out in those woods now. Too bad we can't find him. Yeah, if Rocky had been out here and seen us hit him, I bet he could have tracked him right into the woods. You think so? Sure. They sauntered back along the house and around the corner. Can I shoot? Isaac asked. Nah, it'd just be a waste of ammunition. I only have 1 tube left. No, it won't, I promise. I don't know. Please? All right, but you only get 5 shots. Isaac took the gun from his brother's extended arm. He set the butt down against the gravel and pulled up on the handle, the only way he could get the gun to cock. He aimed at the small silhouettes and fired 3 of his 5 rounds with no luck. I can't see. What? I can't see him. The sun's in my eyes. I'm going to go around to the other side. Isaac walked under the wire and took a few steps back. You can't shoot him from this side. Why? Isaac asked. Because they got their backs turned. It ain't fair. Isaac stuck the butt in the ground and cocked. Almost all the swallows faced the same side, away from him. On one end, though, he found a group that was turned around. Raising the gun, he fired a shot. The BB ricocheted off the wire and some of the birds flew off. They regathered farther down the line. A single swallow sat now, with lots of space around him. Isaac pointed the top of the sight just above its head and fired. The bird fluttered and then dropped straight down, landing on the gravel. Hot damn, Isaac, you got him. John pounced over to the bird and squatted right above it. You got him good. Isaac walked over to the barn swallow. He trapped gophers with his brother before and even hunted with his father. It was the first time he'd ever killed something himself. The bird lay on its side, its small dark beak jutting out, its black eyes still and staring. The excitement that he felt vacated his body as he looked at the motionless bird. Above them, the swallows chirped in the setting sun. I got an idea, John said. He cupped the bird in his hands and stood. Isaac followed him around the corner of the house. Near the woods behind the house stood a small white shed that held most of their mother's gardening materials. John stepped onto the ledge of the flower bed built alongside the shed and placed the bird on the windowsill. Loosely holding the gun, Isaac watched as John attempted to prop the bird up on its feet. Each time it would fall from the ledge into the petunias their mother had planted. John would pick the bird back up with a cuss, straighten its feet, and try to stand it up again. Finally, John leaned the swallow along the corner of the sill in the window. The bird was somewhat upright, but it looked unnatural to Isaac, with its body angled backward and its head drooped to the left against the glass. John stepped away from the shed and looked back to be sure the bird stayed in place. He grabbed the gun from Isaac and dragged him along by the straps of his overalls. Pulling him to the ground some 30 feet away, they laid along the edge of the woods facing the shed. John raised the gun to his shoulder. Now, we just gotta wait for more birds to come. That one there on the shed is a decoy. A decoy? Yeah. The other birds will come see it and come sit next to it. Then we can shoot them too. Isaac's stomach tightened as he looked at the leaning bird. You really think birds are going to come by? How do you figure? Sure. Birds will see him sitting there and figure it's safe to land. Then we'll pop him one. Maybe even get a bigger bird. Or, John spit and closed one eye. He looked down the barrel. We might even see a fox or bear or something that'll want to eat it. The palms of Isaac's hands began to sweat. He wiped them along his overalls and watched the unmoving bird. It just stared back at him. He tried to stay as motionless as the bird, but had a stirring desire to see the bird fly away. They sat there as the sun set, the day turning gradually to dusk. They listened to the quieting chorus of the swallows as the darkness sank in. Not a single bird flew by the shed while they waited. Once they saw their mother's petunias moving, but when they crawled closer to see what was causing it, all they discovered was a frog. Supper, Mother called from the house as the sun met earth. Damn, John said. We'll just have to leave him out here and see if anything comes at night. We can watch him from our window. Come on. They stood, brushed off the front of their overalls, and walked slowly toward the front of the house. Now, don't you tell Mom about that swallow. She'll take it down right away. And don't tell her I've been cussing either. Or I'll tell her that you've been putting those BBs in your mouth again. Isaac stayed silent as they walked up to the front of the porch. John stopped at the door. He turned to Isaac. And don't say nothing about the gun. If some critter comes along tonight, we'll need it. He unclasped one of his buttons, slid the gun down along the right side of his overalls, and buttoned them back up. He stepped up into the house, stiff-legged like a pirate. Isaac followed his brother inside. John, Mother yelled, stopping them both as they walked quietly into the dining room from the entryway. She walked in holding a wooden ladle, her hair pulled back in a frayed bun, the hairs rising and tangling from the humidity and the heat of the kitchen. Why are you limping? I'm not. She pointed the ladle at his right leg. What do you have in there then? Nothing. She took a step toward them and brandished the ladle with a few controlled movements for emphasis. John Arthur Larson. You better wise up this minute and show me what you got. I'm going to smack your rear end until it's red. John clasped his overalls and began to pull out the BB gun. He didn't even get the gun all the way out before the ladle struck him just above the ear. What did I tell you about bringing that thing into the house? She demanded. Go put that back in the entryway where it belongs and then get washed up. She looked at Isaac and pointed the ladle at him. That goes for you too, young man. Isaac followed his brother back to the entryway while watching John massage his head. Later that night, they sat together on Isaac's bed and looked out the north window of the house to the moonlit window of the shed. Isaac couldn't see the swallow, only the light reflecting off the pane and the shadows, but he felt the swallow could see him. He knew the bird was down there, leaning awkwardly in the same position, its staring eyes searching his window from the shadows. He couldn't sleep. If you see anything, John whispered drowsily, let me know, and I'll grab the gun on the way out and sneak up on them. You can give me signals from the window, like soldiers do, to let me know where they're at. After a while, Isaac slid from the bed. His brother slouched and slept with his head against the cool window. Lying on the floor, Isaac shifted the items underneath his bed until he found an old cigar box. He emptied its contents, tucked it under his arm, and tiptoed in bare feet down the stairs through the house with a clenched jaw. He stopped every time he made a creak and waited against his father's snores. The grass was cool underfoot. The clear night sky provided a glowing light as Isaac made his way toward the shed. As he neared, he slowed and felt his heartbeat rise in his throat. Stepping onto the flower bed, he saw the swallow, feathers ruffled, body rigid, cold. Isaac opened the empty cigar box and slid the cover behind the swallow. He pulled the cardboard toward him, and the swallow fell over and rolled off the ledge. Isaac turned the box to catch it and closed the lid. He then stepped down and crept toward a clearing in the woods. He stumbled through the brush and trees while the contents rolled around inside the box. He bumped into an old, decaying stump with exposed roots and placed the cigar box within. He gathered leaves and twigs in front of the stump and then turned back towards the house.